Mr. GP himself from 865.
All right, you ready?
I am.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Natalie. Welcome to Orchard Park Secondary School, home of FRC Team 2056. If you have any questions throughout the day, please feel free to ask me. I would like to introduce our next speaker, Thomas Steele, from Team 9062.
Let me see if I can get this hooked up properly. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. This is a presentation on building partnerships and growing success. So this is going to be about an hour long with some discussion. And if we run out of things to talk about, I've also brought a combat robot from the 30-pound league that competed yesterday night. So some things that we're going to go over today. Some success criteria, SMART goals, what they are, how to plan for them. What is momentum and the factors that go into it, and some case examples from the Ontario region, and some Q&A near the end, where I can get to know each of your team's individual needs, and we can understand how to improve our own momentum. So we have some special guests, one of which actually joined us today. I was not expecting William to be in this presentation, so I added him virtually. I've included some advice from our three mentors here, from various teams. And then I also need a new profile picture. But Aaron is also here. Thank you for joining us. So a little bit about myself, for those who don't know, I was an FRC student between 2011 and 2016. I then went to college, continuing with FRC 2016 to 2019. I was a robotics welder operator during COVID between 2019 and 2021. And I'm a current robotics program lead at Columbia International College, AKA I'm the teacher who does robots. And during my time with different teams, I co-founded 8 teams as a student, 3 teams as a college student, 2 robotics teams as a robotics welder operator, and 4 or more, depending on how we want to look at it, robotics program lead related teams. This isn't just FRC. My goal is to try and make sure that at every level of education, there is a robotics program available. So this includes primarily combat, RI3D, mentorship clubs, and FRC. So why are we all here? We're here to inspire students at all levels of play, at all ages, and to give them the tools they need to accomplish their goals. To prioritize competitiveness over education is to do us all a disservice. And we want to keep this in mind when we talk about competitiveness, because I feel like sometimes we get lost in the sauce of FRC, and we try to maximize our EPA at the cost of team culture or momentum. So, what is momentum? The way I see it, it's the ability to get stuff done in the context of your team and your specific goals. So in what ways can your team have momentum? I'll open this up to the crowd here. What ways can your team have momentum regardless of what your goals are as an individual team? A little bit of a generic question, I know. But there's a couple of different categories that these can fall into. Outreach, media, collabs, and resources. These are the 4 different ones I'm going to talk about today. Resources is a pretty obvious one. We'll get into that in a little bit. Outreach, media, and collabs are a little bit more nebulous. And as we look at each of these 4 factors, we want to consider success criteria. Now, to those who have taught in the past, Al, you're probably familiar with this. William, you're definitely familiar with success criteria. We have to write about it all the time as teachers. But it's important to bring this kind of lesson planning into FIRST. The values are metrics that you use to quantify the success with the students on your team. Even if you're a student on your team, you want to understand how better to measure the impact or the viability of certain plans. So learning goals and outcomes can be associated with things like EPA, OPR, or key performance indicators for those of you writing the business plan. This is an actual quote from Karthik in his TEDx talk from about a decade ago. He said, if you want to be excellent in a field, if you want to rise to the top, you have to be enthusiastic about it. And I think that he makes a good point here. When we're talking about momentum, it can't just be done artificially. It has to happen from an organic sense of wanting to do better in a certain field. You can't just say, oh, I want to be the #1 team at an event and not really have your heart in it and still succeed. I'm going to start off with some not so fun facts for the team. We've got a high churn rate here in Ontario. In fact, we have the highest churn rate of any FRC region by almost double. What is churn rate? Well, the churn rate relates to how many teams collapse rather than continue on. The average team in Ontario lasts about 6 seasons. They have a 60.2% attrition rate, meaning 60% of those teams that were previously created no longer compete. Only 39.8% of the teams that were made overall are still active today. Most of this is due to COVID, but there are also factors like school board initiatives or funding not being provided. One other factor is that events east of the GTA are nearly non-existent within the parameters of FIRST. There's a few kickoff events, there's a few Robots Done Quick or RI3D teams, but we've been slowing down on our growth in the eastern region because we don't have a lot of momentum there. So we'll talk about how we can gain momentum. Additionally, school boards, partially due to budget cuts, have dialed back the financial supports for FRC teams in our region post-COVID. Most notably, in the last month, the TVDSB has canceled $90,000 worth of funding. This affects every team in the Thames Valley District School Board, such as Team 3756 Ramferno, 5024 Raider Robotics, 3739 Oakbotics, etc., so on and so forth. So those teams, all 10 of those teams in that region, have lost $9,000 apiece. That's registration this year. That's a huge deal. So how do we deal with interruptions in momentum? How do we deal with things when they don't go to plan? Well, we can start with factor number one, outreach. Using robots and resources to get your name out there and or make a difference in your community. In FRC, this usually means robot demos, workshops, and volunteering. Can anyone think about using outreach to improve upon a current situation? More sponsors. Yeah, that's great. So how do you think those two correlate? Yeah, so the more events that you compete at, more public demos you go to, the more the sponsors will want to gravitate towards you because, hey, they've got a huge in-person reach. We can get our name out there. We can, have our name on the robot, and that's going to do wonders. I've put some team stats down here for 9062. We've done about 300 outreach in the 3 full seasons that we've competed. So we've averaged almost 100 individual outreach, with this past year being 78 unique outreach that we completed. And it doesn't have to be big. It can be as simple as going to a school meeting or going to clubs day and trying to recruit from within your school population. Or it can be as grand as co-founding a robotics team in a different country. We've worked about 9,000 human hours into these initiatives, which is a crazy number. I hope that nobody else is as crazy as us when it comes to this. Work within your means. But this is an example of what those sort of outreach can lead to. We've received in-person and through digital outreach about 34,000 sets of eyes. And that allows our sponsors to gain those eyes in attention. Media. By picking one or more avenues to showcase your projects in a creative and engaging form, including posts, videos, and interviews. Very similar to outreach. One of the goals would be to gain sponsors. But what else can we gain using social media or media interactions? How else can we increase our momentum? Kind of a tricky question. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it helps with recruitment because if there are students on your team sharing those social media posts or whatever on Instagram, suddenly all of their friends are aware of what's happening on your team. Through word of mouth, virtually, in person, or through social media, we can gain more sets of eyes on us, not just as sponsors, but in other forms of resources like mentors or students. So here are some stats from my team's media team. We've produced about 1,400 YouTube shorts, which is, again, a crazy number. We try to post once a day, whatever we're working on. Once a day, doesn't need to be good, just film it and post it. We've put about 1,000 hours into updating our YouTube profile. And right now we're sitting at about 10 million unique sets of eyes on our operation, which puts us number 2 in the world for media. This allows us to then gain an online audience that is then more dedicated. Not only that, we can source ideas, we can source sponsors, we can collab. We have the option to. The school told us we couldn't. They wanted us to have complete control over who we run ads with, and YouTube doesn't allow for that. So we're currently exploring ways to get monetized through sponsored partnerships. The next sector that I wanted to touch on is collabs, which is, again, kind of a nebulous concept. It's not really something that we present a lot about, although Martin did a really good job about an hour ago introducing the collaboration and team environment. Collaboration is a part of the sport in the modern era. And through community events like this one, we can continue momentum and we can build projects that inspire. So through collabs, how can we keep teams in the region stable and running? Yeah, that's a great example. Access to a practice field. Show of hands, who has access to a practice field inside their own school? OP raised their hands. Put your hand down, Aaron. We do not have access to a practice space. Okay, thank you. So OP, out of the team selected here, is the only example of an in-house practice space. So aside from OP, how do we gain, we can't just break in here. How do we access practice spaces? Well, 5406 has the Robodrome for Robotics Excellence here in Hamilton. It is a wonderful open source collaboration between them and 4039 Makeshift, as well as every other team in their school board. Their school board basically donated them the first floor of a closed down elementary school, and they built a practice field. It's not exactly to spec, it's not big enough to host off seasons or pre-seasons, but it's enough that teams can go in and tune their autonomous mode or get some driver practice. I know we've made huge use of that over the last few years. Frequently, I'll just kind of show up to a meeting and be like, hey, I have a robot in my trunk. Can I? And they'll be like, yeah, okay. And that helps us out a lot because we're within driving distance. For other teams in Mississauga, you can talk to 1325 or 1241. Many of those teams who have been around the block a few times can give you advice on, oh yeah, here's where we practice. Or yeah, you know what? We go bug Bayview Glen or we bug Crescent School and they let us in to tune our autonomous. And through collaborations, through collaborative projects like that, we can gain the resources we need to tune our autonomous, get our code mentors working on things, get our code students learning things. It's a great collaborative atmosphere. Not only that, we don't need to just talk about practice space. We can talk about collaborative projects like this robot in front of us. This is called Baguette 2.0. It's a terrible battle bot, 18 pounds out of the 30-pound league. And I could say it's terrible because I co-created it. But we just had team alumni from, what is it, 3 different teams compete last this weekend. And it was a great collaborative effort to try and get those teams communicating better. How do we get the mentors on the same page? Well, we do sort of fun projects on the side. So again, 9062, we've done about 10 different collabs, 150 hours put into this, and about 5 robotics teams have been stabilized through the collaborative efforts. We can strengthen our community by covalently sharing resources. There doesn't need to be one team that has it all and shares it. There can be one team that's good at programming that shares their resources with everyone else. For example, 5406, who has one of the better programming mentors, who has the most experience, Mr. Pinto. He's helped a ton of teams in the region with understanding autonomous modes, CAN bus cabling issues. Ask him about CAN bus, he'll talk for an hour on it. He's a wonderful guy. But areas that they could improve on are mechanical rigidity. So maybe we want to talk to somebody like Tegan Poles, who's the strategy mentor on Waffles. She has a degree in mechanical and material science, and she is one of the best people in the world when it comes to FRC strategy. Not every team needs to have every answer, as long as we can share all the details together and gain from it. Now the obvious one, resources. Resources are what we typically think of when we think of teams with a higher budget, teams with hundreds of people, or teams that are located close to an event where there's convenience factored in. What else might be included in this category of momentum? Can anyone think of anything else that would count as a resource other than location, budget, maybe parts? Access to a working space, exactly. Mr. Douglas over here had a great presentation last year about resources and calculating one's resources to then figure out what you should go for in the next season. I don't want to steal your thunder. You did a great job last year. But I will say that these are the factors I think about when we talk about resources. We've got time, mentors, student population, not just student population in your team, but student population outside of your team. What's that ratio look like? What percentage of the school population is represented on your team? Location to the events, parents, volunteers, and of course, funding. Here are some of our stats. Right now, we've got about 10 post-secondary students who are involved at some level or another in 9062's development. They can be virtual, they can be in person. Some of them are in this room. Thank you guys for showing up. And through that collaboration, we can gain insight into, well, this is how we used to do it. And oh my God, it's so much easier because we have X, Y, Z. We have these resources, we can appreciate it, we know how to use them. For example, gearboxes are somewhat of a solved issue. We used to use Vex Pro Versaplanetaries. I don't know if anyone's taken one apart. They are horrendously difficult to put back together. Another stat, 13% of CIC students, which is our school, are involved in our robotics team. We only have about 550 students. I counted them on the Terry Fox run yesterday, and 13% of them, or 1 in 8 students at our school, are on the club. This means that we have a very high reach and decently supportive school because everybody knows about us. We're not some hole in the wall. And we're very fortunate to live close to McMaster. We don't make use of going to McMaster because that's a scary event where OP usually wins. But, you know, it's nice to be able to volunteer there and check out what everyone else is cooking up. So let's link growing success and momentum. And to the teachers in the audience, growing success, yes, I'm referring to that picture with the tree on it that we all had to memorize. Growing success for students looks like taking what you have now and applying it so that you have more later, in simple terms. So we can apply these 4 different momentum factors and then use them to create learning goals and outcomes and success criteria. For example, number 1 up here on the board, outreach in the form of volunteering in public events. Well, outreach can help to bring people from the public into your close circle of supporters, making more resources possible through your network. Gaining an interested and involved audience through which you can develop collabs, outreach, resources, and contacts is sort of the purpose and the be-all end-all of media if you're looking purely at momentum. For collabs, learning lessons the easy way would be by talking to teams who've already done it the hard way. Can't stress this enough. If you talk to a team that's older than you or has competed more than you, you're going to learn things that you would have made the mistake of not learning had you not talked to them. For example, for the CAN bus loop that I mentioned earlier, we were using vampire crimps. We are now using Molex SLs, which super nerdy niche topic, but the vampire crimps are one-time use. After you use them, that cable needs to be replaced, and it was getting pretty costly. We had to keep investing in CAN bus cable. Molex SLs, modular, lockable, you can move them anywhere you want. So suddenly, we don't have that resource drain anymore. We're no longer buying wire. We can completely reuse every wiring harness. And we wouldn't have realized that without understanding those lessons from other teams who've done it the hard way. And resources. Through the above points, we can gain resources, and then we can spend those resources covalently to lift the entire region, not just ourselves. So here's how curriculum and momentum can sometimes go wrong. To quote Dean Kamen, we need an XRP kit in every high school. This was one of the most divisive things he ever said, which is saying a lot. An XRP kit is a very miniature robot, and he was trying to pitch at Worlds that every single school should adopt this. It's costly, it's not sustainable, and it's spending resources in the wrong place. It's doing outreach in the wrong place. We can better use those resources. Equity is necessary to guarantee progress. You can't apply the same XRP kit or the same thing to every school and expect the same results. Because, like Martin said in the presentation an hour ago, for any of you who were there, your culture is yours and yours alone. Media in all of its forms, from social media to the daily paper, can allow us to gain momentum. However, if we think with this quote in mind, we don't have the success to post consistently enough for an audience, it kind of diminishes your returns. Film whatever you're working on, even if it needs improvement. I've learned that lesson through dozens of hours of making YouTube content for our team. You kind of just film whatever's going on and you post it, and you don't need to edit it. It does not need to be professional. This is high school robotics. The point is that everyone learns and everyone has a good time. Collabs are the heart of FRC, right? Woody was all about GP. Woody Flowers was the creator of GP and the co-creator of FIRST Robotics in general. So if we want to collab but we live too far away, think virtually. reshape what you think a collab looks like until it fits within your resources. And again, resources allow us to give our students the best possible experience, but it doesn't just need to be your students. It can be everyone's students. If we have X and Y figured out, some think that you don't need to think about X or Y for the next couple of years. Well, we've already got mentors. We've got 10 mentors right now. We don't need to worry about gaining new mentors for the next couple of years. What if 6 of them are university students and they all graduate in the next 4 years? What if a couple of them fall sick and have to retire from FRC, which happened with Robotics around 2019 to 2021? Resources in FRC are temporary. Use them or lose them, especially volunteer mentors. The average volunteer mentor spends 4 seasons on a team, total. So if you think, oh, wow, we've got lots of mentors, they're going to be able to teach the next generation, don't count on it for sure. Use those resources while you have them to then create things that don't decay over time, like time commitments. Have them create resources that work. The next few minutes, I'm going to spend talking about outreach case studies and stuff like that. I know it's a lot of talking. We'll get into some discussion in a second. But I want to talk about what some teams are doing right, and then some ways that other teams can be improving. A good example of outreach would be Team 4039, Makeshift Robotics. They're a famous team, more famous than ourselves, that's for sure. And they work with multiple public annual events, such as the Cactus Festival. I was at the Cactus Festival and just happened to bump into them with their robot. I think it was awesome that they didn't really advertise it. They were just there, supporting the event, doing a robot demo. They have a 63% lifetime win rate. Why is that important? Well, we can see that not only are they focusing on the momentum of the robot, but they're also focusing on the momentum of their culture and of their team experience. You can do all of it. You don't have to just focus on one and be content with it. Makeshift has won 39 FRC Cultural Awards since their inception in 2011. That's no mistake. They put a ton of effort in. They have several mentors dedicated to this, and they've given a presentation at this very conference on how to apply for impact and how to get the momentum going in a non-technical sense. They document absolutely everything they do so that they can learn lessons from it later. This is what their robot looks like. It's an incredible machine. We can all learn from teams like Makeshift about outreach. Here's what I sort of predicted if Karthik was in the room, what he would say about this team. Makeshift Robotics is successful not because of luck or perceived advantages, but because they work extremely hard to manage the small team with many industry and post-secondary mentors as possible. They are the rainbow standard for recruiting help. On to some social media as a case study. FIRST's most watched YouTube channel by far, with a ridiculous amount of views, is 6328 Mechanical Advantage. They've won 8 FRC Impact Awards, including one in their 2nd season alone. They have a 67 lifetime win rate. They post on multiple social media to gain a wide audience between TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, whatever. And it means that they are world-renowned for building climbers or testing their shooter. None of these are polished videos per se, it's just what's happening in the moment and allows the audience to feel emotionally connected to that team. Here's what the experts might say. Mechanical Advantage sets themselves apart from other Einstein-level teams by using social media to make themselves more approachable to rookies and experts alike. They purposefully and intentionally show progress that's great for inspiring others because it's not done yet. But you can be the audience that supports them while they finish it. Another example on collaborations. I use my team because I have the most data on them. We have about a 42% lifetime win rate. We're not there yet, working on it. And we've collaborated with larger media channels to grow the audience. We only use YouTube for social media right now because of school policy, but it allows us to focus more on collabs that work for that social media specifically. So we're working within the resources we have to attain the highest possible result. We document almost everything we work on. We know our limits for volunteers and IRL supporters. And most importantly, we stay silly. We don't take ourselves too seriously. By building Chop Side Quest, we can keep students involved at every stage. To somewhat quote Aaron. He didn't actually say that. I'm just envisioning he would say that. Here's a fun fact or two about our team. We were on a JSchlatt stream in 2025. As video submitters, we did a complete joke video. It ended up with like 2 million views or something crazy. And there were people subscribing to our account who did not know what robotics was at all. They're just like, oh, that was that weird guy on JSchlatt's stream. I need to find out more information. And that helped us grow our channel. Additionally, we got featured in fun videos. First Updates now, now I think it's called Fun Robotics Network. They've changed their name recently. But we were featured in those videos partially due to the silliness of Baguette 1 and Baguette 2. Baguette 1 was this wide. I brought it to the OP conference last year. It was the widest FRC legal configuration. It was only 6.5 inches long, which meant that it was inherently a goofy side quest to do. But it allowed our audience in on the joke. By staying silly, we can continue our momentum because people feel like there's no wrong answer. We also volunteered at DashCon 2, which is a convention for internet humor. It has nothing to do with robotics, but it reaches a brand new audience that may not know what it is. And lastly, for resources, we're going to talk about Green Home Depot. For those of you who aren't in on the joke, Green Home Depot is Celtex 5406. They're here in town. And we call them Green Home Depot because their pit is 10 feet tall, pure green, and they have like 50,000 pounds of parts in their pit. And they will happily give you some if you need it. They are one of the kindest teams I've interacted with. They have a 66% lifetime win rate, so almost equal to Makeshift. They don't do as much outreach. They focus on 3 or 4 big events. But what they do right is they use their resources to benefit all of us. They host the Overtime Sunday, which is an FRC off-season event on November 2nd. I recommend going to it even if you're a spectator. They post on Open Alliance and frequently post during build season, so you can follow along with the build. And you can see exactly what they're building and why. They often perform analysis on their prototypes, so you can see what works, what doesn't within your resources. And they've given parts to almost every team in the region at some point or another. If there's a green part on your robot, chances are it was donated by Celtex. William had to step out, but maybe what he would have said is 5406 represents a culture of helping, not with the intent of recognition, but for the sake of others. And what I say is that by sharing resources like electrons and a covalent bond, we can strengthen our region of robotics regardless of hurdles. Now a little bit of background on SMART goals. I've neglected T for now. We'll get into that in a second. But specific goals, measurable goals, achievable goals, and relevant goals are helpful. To do a goal correctly, to get to that objective, you have to think about these 4 factors. We want to be the best is a ridiculously broad-ranging goal. And it's hard to achieve something if it's too broad of a goal. So the S stands for specific. We want to seed in the top 8 of our next tournament. Is specific, it's measurable, it is timely, it's relevant, and it's achievable. Making the coolest looking robot is hard to measure. It is specific, but we don't know how you're objectifying that. Making 5 robot parts that look FRC theme specific, that is something that can be done this season. Just take a look at Title Shift. Every part of their robot was themed for this year's game, or color coordinated to their team logo. I think that was one of the prettiest robots at the week 1 events. Getting picked for eliminations is not within your control. So don't say that that's your goal. Don't say as a smaller team, oh, we just want to get picked for eliminations. You have 0 control over whether that happens or not. And I can say that because I've been not picked probably more times than anyone else in this room. I routinely go to tournaments where I don't make the final bracket. That's okay, as long as that's not your goal. Your goal can be that you build a robot that can do 10 cycles. In 2025, 10 cycles is good enough to get picked at most local tournaments. That's achievable. That's relevant. That's timely. Having the funniest Elim's intro gimmick is not very relevant, even though Aryan achieved it. However, being loaded onto the field fast enough that you can wave to Karthik is specific, measurable, relevant. It allows you to make sure that you've done your pre-match checklist and you're professional in the face of an introduction. So why did I neglect to add the T for timely? Well, that's because time is always precious in FRC, and most goals in FRC automatically have a time limit on them. You can't just apply for a 2027 award now. However, strategic goals play a part in developing business plans, award applications, team culture, and identity. We're going to go through a few more slides on applications of momentum and how it applies to different teams of different strengths and weaknesses. We're going to start off with team 9991, who's an example team. They have one mentor and between 10 and 12 students. They build the kitbot, nothing more, and they compete at their local tournament, nothing more. I'm using this example because this is the base level understanding of FRC. If you've got one mentor, about a dozen students, you can compete with a kitbot. By completing collabs, they can learn about the resources available to all teams within the region. For example, here in Ontario, they can learn that there's a Team Rev team that tests new products, or that there's multiple Open Alliance teams like 3161 who post regularly. They can use that knowledge and they can do outreach and gain resources. They can also do collaborations to gain resources or spread knowledge to other kitbot style teams. And they can use new resources that they've gained through the above, including media reach, to try and build maybe the EveryBot or a harder to build guided build. Because we don't want to jump all the way to a custom solution, but a team like this that just builds what's in the kit of parts can do better with the resources they have if they have some momentum behind them. That includes students, that includes sponsors, that includes mentors. You don't need all three to be successful. Here's an example, 9992. This team has 5 to 10 mentors and 25 to 40 students. They build the West Coast Products robot, which is very complicated, but still guided build every year, and they compete. So how can a team like this build momentum? They can complete collabs so that they can learn about more niche materials, maybe stuff that they haven't worked with before. They can use their knowledge to do sponsor presentations and gain resources like company sponsorships, free parts, or beta testing on new controllers. They can also film their outreach and collabs since they have a fairly competitive robot, and they can make media posts using that footage that come off as professional and edited. And they can use their new, better resources to try and build a custom solution to FRC 2026. The example I'm using here is 1325. 1325 did this for their first event. They had a WCP robot, and by the end of the season, they had a totally custom solution. This is the face of a man who won the last tournament. He won the Sunday tournament. This guy, this team. You can do it too. Sorry, that's a bit of an in-joke. Team 9993, an example team. Those of you who know what this robot is, you know who I'm talking about. This team has 15 plus mentors and 60 students. They build a custom robot solution and they make worlds every year, but they don't make Einstein every year. So how can a team like this continue to build momentum if you're in a position where, hey, we've got resources, we've got mentors, we've got time, what else is there to accomplish? We can complete collabs so that everyone can learn about how similar teams solve problems more efficiently. There's always a team out there doing it better than you. So let's learn from the best and invent the rest. Use the knowledge to do collabs and gain resources. So you've learned from other teams, or you are that other team providing resources. Do collabs so that everyone in your region gets lifted up. Because in case of inclement weather or teacher disruptions, you can rely on your friends to have your back, especially if they're local teams. You can also film your outreach and collabs and make media posts using that footage, just like I said with the last two. At any level of play, you can do that and gain momentum. And you can use continually better resources gained through the above to try and win the World Championship. William might have said, and we will never know because he's gone right now, but every team in the region can learn something from this team. They have solved the supervision and strike issues that defeat many teams in our region. The team, of course, I'm referring to is 1114. Team 9994. This team has 15 plus mentors and 60 students. They make elims at Worlds every year. They have a custom solution. They've got it all figured out. So what else do they have to do? How can a team like this build momentum if they already have such good momentum? Well, they can complete collabs so that they can understand how similar teams solve problems more efficiently or provide younger teams with good advice, like this conference right here. Plot twist, I'm talking about 2056. You could tell because Balraj is balling. You can film your outreach and collabs, again, just like any other team, and make media posts that matter, that gain you resources. And you can use those resources to try and win the World Championship. It doesn't matter what level of competition you're at, there's always a better way to improve your momentum. If you shoot for the moon, you land among the stars. But if you shoot from the moon, you can make Einstein. My last example here, ChairBot, 5246. This team has a chair on their robot. I'm not giving you any other information. Using this information alone, what can a team like this use to build their momentum. Start building go-karts. Love that idea. I was in a go-kart less than 12 hours ago. It was a great experience. My hands are still numb. Yes. Yeah, they can make social media posts that are goofy. They could have some guy being driven around on it. And using that momentum, maybe they can recruit more students. What can we, yeah. What if they put their driver on the chair? I think that would be a rule violation, I think. But like off the field, like at their build space, they could totally do that. Yeah. So I used this exact same image at my presentation last year. Oh, sorry, there was a hand. A chair sponsorship. There we go. Now we're thinking outside of the box. Into building wheelchairs. Okay, so there's a collaborative outreach solution. You're laughing because it is funny, but that is a good idea. They've built one robot with a chair on it with wheels. They can partner with a local hospital to do outreach with similar devices. Let's say they have a spare kit bot laying around in their build space, or at the end of the season, they don't know what to do with this. They can donate it to a person in need, or they can have it on loan to the school or to the hospital as a service, and they can continuously maintain it to provide outreach. Through that outreach, they can gain more eyes on their team. Outreach, collabs, media presence, and resources can all be gained through momentum, and they all are intertwined. A team like this might aim for things like this on the field. No drive-based failures, because that's the only thing that could fail. There's no other moving parts. Auto line points, parking, and clean defense could be a goal for that team. They're specific, they're measurable, they are achievable, and they're relevant. And of course, they're timely because you only have 2.5 minutes in the match. Talking about the chairbot, it's okay to be ridiculous. The act of creating something amusing invites collabs from your audience and gives others the courage to lend their ideas to solve current problems. Because by being silly, we prove that no idea is a bad idea. Right? If I came up here and I started talking about DashCon 2 and JSchlatt like I just did, that proves to you that anyone can stand up here and present. Right? Just because I'm Unk status doesn't mean that I know more than you. It just means I failed more than you. And we can learn from that. By being silly, it invites you to participate in a thing because you're emotionally invested in that thing. And that emotion can be humor. It can be serious dedication. It can be whatever momentum you've got. Here are some good ideas for collabs and outreach in the region. And this extends to our Quebec friends, although I apologize, there's only one dot near Ottawa. I wasn't aware you would be here. I wasn't aware of your game. But things that you can do, combat robotics. For example, to train our mentors, we participate in Bot Brawl. I'm sorry, I keep touching the mic. I hope everyone in chat is fine. But we can do combat robotics through Bot Brawl Canada. 50% of the execs of that group are FRC alumni, like myself. I'm not an exec, but a lot of my friends are in that group. Bot Brawl Canada is the best combat robotics league in Canada, and it's primarily run by FRC alum and students. Competitors are from 1310 or 1114 or 5406 or even the jumping bot 4907. There's 50% FRC involvement right now, but that means that there's 50% potential new audience if you go into that sport. You can gain momentum by trying new things. And not only that, this is a cheaper league to get your mentors some hands-on wiring and electrical experience because all you need is a drill battery and a couple of motors and you're good. Event volunteering. Events couldn't run without support from FRC teams, so let's work together to keep them running smoothly. Right now, 50% or more of FRC students and alumni make up the population of volunteers at the Waterloo 2025 event. More than half of all the volunteers at that event have been students on a team. A 10% increase in this dedication would solve all of the volunteer crises that we had at Centennial or Durham or any of the other events in 2025 where we were short-staffed. 10%. It's not a big goal, but it would solve the volunteer staffing issue for the entire region and help us stabilize more events out east, where there's currently a lack. Additionally, we could build collab robots, like Robot in 3 Days or Robots Done Quick, a speedrun that 9062 participates in. There are 5 different robot speedrun teams highlighted in dark blue on the map behind. You can see that there's a Capital RI3D, there's a London RI3D, there's 2 GTA teams and a Hamilton team. This means that based off of the FRC population, there's somebody within driving distance who will have a robot done within the first week. And you can learn from that by talking to them about how they code their robot or challenges that they faced while assembling the kitbot. 12 will be enough for a tournament. So if you're interested in learning more about RI3D, let me know. Now, I think we've got a few minutes left, so I wanted to open this up to discussion, understanding your team's current momentum and how either this presentation or the other people in this room can assist you with building your own momentum. So I'm going to open it up now to anyone who wanted to share their experience with the momentum they currently have on their team.
Like the resources, good resources like the other ones like for our team, like we run an FLL event, and like it was really great, having the other students who were involved, well, they get volunteer hours or whatever, right? So yeah, it is a great.
Absolutely, yeah. It's tough to run an event comprised entirely of FRC invested people because they're naturally going to want to socialize with whatever FRC event you've got going on. So if you're planning something like an FRC kickoff, that's a great way to get the 40 volunteer service hours you need for Ontario. And it's a great way to also involve people who are maybe emotional support friends of people on the team, but aren't directly involved.
I'm not exactly, but just in general, how do you handle having like members that are actually really committed? Because you say you have 13% of your
Mhm.
right on your team. How many of those would you say like are the actually committed to job?
The ones who attend daily meetings in the lab would probably be 30 to 40% of our team. So we've got between 20 and 30 students a day who come in and learn what they can. Yeah, that sounds like a correct number. I'll do some fact checking and get back to you if it's incorrect. But we've got between 20 and 30 that attend at least 1 hour a day. Several who show up 3 hours a day. We've got staggered meetings because of the school that we work out of. It's a school that has a residence, so everyone gets bussed back at the end of the day at a very strict time. So we work within those time constraints. We have an hour after the school finishes their academic duties for the day, where we can meet and build, and then we've also got an 80-minute lunch. So within that staggered lunch, etc., we've got people showing up for a couple of hours at a time. What can we do? Small tasks. We break big tasks into small tasks for the really dedicated crowd. That way they can continue to work day after day. And we meet 4 to 5 times a week, depending on availability. So very short, very frequent meetings. It means that communication is very high key. Everyone knows what's going on at all times. Or at least we like to think that way. So how do I handle really dedicated students? I tend to entrust them with more leadership roles because I know that they're going to show up to the events. I know that the student that I've appointed as safety captain might not be the best safety captain now, but in 2 years when he graduates, he's going to be the best safety captain we've ever had because he's got time to grow into that role. He's got time to understand and collaborate with other teams in the region and learn what being a safety captain really means. Additionally, the team captain that we've got this year is brand new. We've had a 91, 92% turnover from last year. We had 66 students graduate off of our team in May. So we've had to rebuild almost our entire leadership structure, our entire way we do things, because we had 100% code turnover, 100% partnerships turnover, starting from the bottom. But the dedicated students are making it worth it because I can give them an activity and they can work on it and then join a voice call and ask questions or ping me in our Discord and ask questions. They can start to get a head start whenever they've got time in class and want to ask a query. So it's tricky. It's a case-by-case basis. I know that previous robotics teams that have attended this seminar, such as Arctos, have extremely high student leadership, regardless of mentors. That's the team we were talking about, exactly. So having a team with maybe not so many mentors, but a ton of really involved students means that those students need to stay organized as if they were mentors to help supplement the responsibility or, I don't know, just general awareness of health and safety records in the shop when stuff's getting done. We're lucky we've got a bunch of first year and second year McMaster students because we live across the street from them. But in regions where there are fewer mentors, you have to treat some of your older students with a few more responsibilities than you might with a well-mentored team.
I guess one of the things that I'm curious is like, how do you get to that like 30 to 40% of the members that come campus, we had like 120 registered members, but then people building the robot was about 10.
So we do still have about 10 building the robot day by day, but it's not the same 10 every day. We've got probably a core group of 6 who are always working on the robot, and then it's on Mondays we've got this group of 4 who come in, or on Fridays we've got this mentor and this group of 3 who attend. And so it's kind of haphazard in that way and very organic. But when it comes to high student population, low student involvement, I'd say do the silly side quests. Do the stuff that amuses your team and gets them thinking creatively. So we'll do a mock kickoff and we'll look for the most cursed possible design that's legal. We won't actually build it, but we'll talk about it. We'll be like, can we do a maglev mechanical build on this? Or can we build a 1-inch wide drivetrain? Why isn't that possible? Or can we build the tallest robot and fall over, and that means that you block the entire field? Well, no, there's rules about that. And having that conversation early not only teaches them about what perennial rules exist in FIRST, but it also teaches them that there's no such thing as a wrong answer in FIRST. There's some strategically interesting things you can do, like building an L1 robot that shoots this way only. That's like long ways. Why would you do that? Just roll it out like the Kitbot. But there are teams that chose that, and that's their prerogative. When it comes to like culture and motivating students, I'd say do whatever works. Like if combat robotics is what gets those kids fired up, or maybe they're big into Marvel or Transformers, do a side project related to that. We have one kid who's working on building an Iron Man helmet. He's 3D printed about 2/3 of it and working on a heads-up display. And that's how we motivated that student and his friends to continue in robotics and get more involved. So it's totally case dependent. Did anyone else want to talk about? Yes.
Well, on my team, I've heard with other teams too, sometimes the students, the members get form into cliques. So I was wondering if you had to deal with that kind of issue on the kids on your team and what you would do to mitigate that.
Yeah, so we do have a few cliques, but it's usually based off of region of origin, frankly, because we've got 70 countries represented at our school. We've got probably 18 to 20 countries represented on our team. So that means that all the Vietnamese students, they speak to each other in literally a unique language that we don't know. So I can't tell what they're saying to each other, and there's a communication barrier there. So we do have cliques, but they're more divided by language than anything else, not really culture. We've got a few people who like to play video games or whatever, but what we do to involve them is I set up retro consoles in the classroom. And so we can understand how retro technology works. How does a CRT work? How does Wii Sports work? Because that's a retro game console now. And we do that as a team building activity. We'll have a Smash Bros competition or whatever every fall, just to get people in the door and get them talking about technology, even if it's not related technology. And that kind of breaks down the clique because it's totally randomized esports, and it's on a console nobody remembers having because it's from 2006, and all the students are like 2010s at this point. And so you've got this great collaborative of how do I use this ancient technology called a Wiimote? I don't know. That's the most recent example I can think of. That's a good question. Cliques are really difficult to dissect and understand even in normal social circumstances, let alone in FRC, where there's a whole nother layer of jargon on top of it.
They don't really feel engaged with they don't really want to talk about it.
We had that happen in 2024, actually. That's a good thing to bring up. We had a really dedicated core rookie group that was in grade 12 by 2024. And what happened was we had a bunch of rookies coming in who didn't feel like they belonged because they didn't know what was going on. And then all the grade 12s graduated and they all went, oh, we can relax now. We can do whatever we want. Because oh, you're telling me that I have to figure this out on my own? Oh, shoot, how did Ricky do that last year? I didn't realize how valuable Ricky was to our team. And all the rookies sort of figured that out organically. And that's not a problem that we solved. I wish I could say that I solved that problem, but it kind of worked its way out on its own. And it takes a few years to get into that rhythm of changeover. With our school, we primarily don't have grade 9s. We have grade 10, 11, and 12, meaning every 3 years we get Thanos snapped as opposed to every 4 like all of you. So that means that we have to accelerate a lot of our training. Our training is a lot more haphazard. It's whoever's here, let's get you through health and safety and get you on those drills. And that doesn't leave room for clicks because there's not enough time to form that click over 4 years. But with teams that are 4 years and running, or teams that have a middle school attached, like SWAT, who sometimes you'll know a student for 12 years, it can be very divisive. And understanding group dynamics, I feel like that is more 3544's presentation. And Martin, if you're watching this VOD, thank you very much for that presentation. I think that talking to a team who's older and in the same school board would be a better piece of advice. 865 is your core team this year, right? What team is your core team this year? 865. There's not a whole lot of older teams out there, is there? Those triple digits. But I'd say talk to 610. See what their experience is, because they are in Toronto. They've got a similar culture to yours. Both been operating for about 20 years, and both have a school pipeline that would lend itself to having clicks because of how long you've known your co-students. So they would probably have better advice than me.
Yeah, I know, like, I was a grade 9. How long that, like, I think it's mostly have like a grade 9 high school in general. I feel like you belong until you take time.
Yeah, and I feel like some teams in the GTA, as their tech teachers retire or as you get a new lead mentor, that kind of tone totally shifts and changes. And I can understand how that might feel different or feel alienating when you get into it. Did anyone else have some momentum points they wanted to talk about, or want to ask any questions about how we do things or how we gain our momentum? That's an excellent question. We wrote a business plan a couple of years ago, and we've done our best to stay close to it, but it's been different. I'll get you in a second, Ari, and I see that you've got your hand up. Sorry? You want to join in on this question? Okay, go ahead.
How do you balance the student leadership and the mental leadership? Yeah, that's like the have like a culture on where they're being involved, and then at the same time, they're not afraid to ask. That would be by far quite the narrow field of movement. But from my experience, that so on my try to like and we aren't scared of that. So that's how I feel. Can be like by but at the same time there needs to be pressure walk over it.
Yeah, those are really good points. I'd say that we're still figuring it out. This is our 4th official season. I've been on other teams. This is season 15 for me. So I'm used to sort of school boards or community teams, and those have much more rigid hierarchies of who's in charge, because that's who's paying the bills. With us, it's me as the teacher mentor, my co-lead teacher mentor, Leanne. We make decisions that are sometimes final if they have to be. But for the most part, we try and get the younger mentors involved in every decision we can. And sometimes that sparks a bit of controversy within the mentor group. But for the most part, we've got mentors who've got 1 or 2 wheelhouses that they really specialize in. For example, we've got a guy who's really good at strategy and really good at mechanical maintenance. And how do we keep him involved in strategy conversations while mechanical's off doing its own thing? Well, we can have it so that if there's 2 or more mentors in a room, we focus on, okay, which one has the most competition experience with this one focus? And then we'll default to that position if no one's really different about a subject. So if we're talking about what kind of swerve model we want to invest in for the future seasons, whether it's Mark 5N or some more of the same Mark 4Is, it's a conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago. Not that we have the budget for it right now, but it's a conversation we've had. We talk to the mentors who have the most electrical experience to go, okay, what's the easiest one to wire? What's the easiest one to debug? is the CAN coder accessible enough on the newer model where it's not going to impact it as much? We take that advice, and then we go to the mechanical guy who makes the final call, because that's a financial decision. When it comes to student leadership, generally the students tend to sort themselves out for, oh, this one is like super good at wiring and claims to be the best wirer in the whole world. Great, that's your wiring lead. You want a slight amount of ego and pride when it comes to being a sub-team lead. And I'd say that we lucked out with the students that I've got. I'm extremely fortunate to have students who are really, really involved, and those leaders end up making a lot of those decisions. If it's not a decision in what we're investing in, but a temporary decision, a 1 to 2 year decision, I'll default to the students and the team captain, because those are the people who are going to see the direct benefit. So it's a little bit more fluid. I'm sorry, I can't give you a concrete answer, but within the case study that is your team, figure out who's going to be here the longest, who has to deal with the consequences of this question or this theory or query going on, and then who has the best advice to offer to make that decision. And I think those should be the 3 people in that room making that call.
If your club is not in the city where the university like a master, how do you recruit a mentor or find a mentor?
That is a perennial issue, isn't it? That's one of the most difficult questions to answer in all of FIRST. And as someone who has been on several teams with only a few mentors, it's really difficult to build up that momentum. But after you've been around for about 5 seasons, there naturally will be people who were in grade 12 when you were rookies, remember you as a rookie team, went through all of university, and are now in your region looking for work, or are in your region working at a co-op or an internship in their final year of study. And they go, oh, I remember that team. They're still around? That's great. How can I help? And so you tend to recruit young professionals. I'd say go to the local Rotary Club, go to the Lions Club, whatever service club you can find that's in active operation within your city bounds. I'm sorry, you guys are, right, specific Markham?
It's North York.
North York, okay. So find the North York Lions or Rotary Club, reach out to them, see if they've got anyone who, let's say, is a retired welder and wants to come in and give a lecture to the students on, here's the fundamentals of welding, or here's how the science and chemistry of welding works. Getting sort of, to use a casual phrase, getting the old heads in and getting them invested in educating the students is probably the easiest way to gain mentors. It's not the most dedicated mentorship you can find, but it's good, solid advice from people who are traditionally in blue-collar trades and know a thing or two. So that's how Oakbotics ran when we were community. I used to run it out of my parents' basement for 3 or 4 seasons in a row. And we got the head of Digital Extremes, who created Warframe, to come into my basement and give a talk to the students on coding. And I think that was one of the most surreal moments, because I looked it up. He's got like 100,000 YouTube subscribers, and they have an entire convention dedicated to his video games. But he was just hanging out in our basement, like talking about code. And that was a great moment for the students. Did he come back too often? Not really, but he was a friendly face at the tournaments and helped us with a couple of code issues. We also got to...
What is the benefit to them?
That's a great question. I know with your team, you're extremely hospitable. And when we invited you over to our shop, you gave us a beautiful basket of chocolate to share with the team. So I'm sure that that's a kind way to say thank you. But in terms of what they get, especially if it's a retired person in the trades, what they get is a feeling of ownership of their career or feeling of pride in their work. I find now that I'm an ex-welder, anytime someone wants to learn about welding, I'm passionate about telling them about it, because, oh man, I've got relevant experience. I hardly ever get to use this relevant experience. So finding people who are in that position, who maybe have slowed down their careers or have retired fully, would give them this emotional connection to your team that I find is quite useful to both yourself and to that individual. So it's somewhat of a collaboration, and yes, an emotional connection. That's where I would start. I think that mentorship is one of the hardest problems to solve, and that's why I was saying covalent crew of mentors would help to solve the problem. If we can share our online resources, if we can be in, I don't know, the Maple Kiddos Discord or whatever, and have a representative from each team, I think that would do us all a service, because then we can share all that knowledge without needing to be in person. and let's say the Kingston team comes up with a good meta for the game, they can share that with the Windsor teams or the North Bay teams or the Sault Ste. Marie team nobody ever hears from because they live so far away they can't do collaborative outreach. All right, I think that's it for today. I think we are over time, actually. Thank you so much for all attending. I have some team buttons up here from my team. Please feel free to take those. I think there was Timbits at the back of the classroom. Please take those as well. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Why?